This section will cover the self-disassembly process of the 1600 Kobelco crane. For an easier disassembly process, place the machine on a firm, level supporting surface. Place the block and ball on the ground and lower the boom close to the ground. It will now be necessary to change the LMI setting into the setup mode. This is done by pushing the button on the LMI showing the boom being taken apart and hold it for 3 seconds. Remove the cable and wedge sockets and disassemble them. Unreeve the hoist cable from the load block and remove anti-2 block weights from the cables and limit switches. Wind up the anti-2 block cable on the reel at the boom base section. Then slowly wind hoist cable while keeping the wire rope tight on the drum. Secure the hoist cables to the drum so the cable does not become loose. Now lower the boom to the ground. Raise the spreader guides on the boom base up to the working position. Lower the boom hoist wire rope to set the spreader into the spreader bracket and secure it with pins. Tighten the boom hoist wire rope to remove the load from the bottom pins on the boom base section. Lower the spreader guides back to transport position. Then remove the bottom connecting pins first. Both ends of these pins are tapered, so the pins can be removed while standing safely outside the boom. Stand clear when removing any boom connecting pins because it is possible for the boom to suddenly shift as they are being removed. Now, lower the boom down onto wooden blocking. Remove the top boom connecting pins and disconnect the guy cables at the spreader. We are now able to back the crane away from the boom. We will now demonstrate using the crane for self-disassembly. At this point, we will need to remove the rear main counterweights. Disconnect the swing alarm and flasher harness from machine to counterweights. First, turn off the engine and connect the counterweight cylinder control box to the receptacle on the right side of the crane. Move the 3-way switch into the gantry tag line position, and then start the engine. Using the hand throttle, set the engine RPM to about 1000 RPMs. Turn on the power switch on the control box and fully raise both of the counterweight cylinders. Remove the main mounting pin spring clips and the slide and main mounting pins out to the release position. Now move both the left and right cylinder control switches to the down position. The cylinders work independently, so the operator can keep the counterweight assembly level while lowering. Lower the counterweight assembly down and set it on a firm supporting surface. Disconnect the counterweight linkage and place it into the storage position. We will now install a single sheave block to the boom base. Lower the boom base section near the block being used for self-erection. You will need to use the hoist cable from the front drum. Feed the cable through the top and bottom sheave on the boom base. Then run the cable through the load block and install the weight for the anti-2 block system. Now run the cable up through the last sheave and install the wedge socket and clamps on the cable end. Pin the wedge socket to the mounting location. Install the limit switch and connect the anti-2 block weight. Unwind the cable as needed and connect it to the mount on the boom base. Then connect the wire end to the limit switch. Then make the final connection at the reel. The anti-2 block operation can now be checked by pulling the limit switch by hand and watching for the hook over hoist trouble code on the LMI warning bar to discontinue. Now raise the boom up to the working position. The LMI will now need to be programmed into self-removal mode. To do this, first push the menu button, then scroll to Settings and push Set. Then select the setting of the crane posture screen and push Set. Then go to Self-Removal mode and push Set. Use the right arrow button and choose 2 parts of line, and again push Set. At this point, the LMI will automatically go into self-removal mode. At this point, use the boom base to remove the car body counterweights. Each car body weight is 11,025 pounds, so use suitable rigging for this lift. Lower the counterweight brackets down to the transport position. At this point, the crane may be used as needed to disassemble the boom and counterweights and make them ready for shipment. After we have positioned the boom and counterweight pieces, we are now ready to remove the track frames. This process must be done on very firm ground or on top of steel plates. Turn off the engine and disconnect the hydraulic lines from the base machine to the track frames. Then the two cables to operate the remote box from the translifters will now need to be connected. One is for the power supply from the upper structure to the lower car body. The other is the control box itself. Turn off the engine and connect the power cord to the receptacle on the right side of the upper structure, and the other end to the lower power supply, located in the main car body of the machine. Then connect the control box cable to the switch box. Each of the cables are marked with identification numbers. We will now move the translifter swing arms into the working position. First, remove the swing arm locking pins on each of the translifter swing arms and place them into the empty hole next to it. Swing the translifter arms out to the working position and the locking pins will fall into place. Make sure all 4 locking pins are fully inserted and spring pins are installed on the bottom side of the lock pins. Install the floats on the bottom of each translifter and secure with locking pins. Now remove the hoses that are stored in the front and rear of the car body frame compartments. These are the hydraulic hoses that control the main track pin cylinder. There is one set of hoses for the front mounting cylinder and another for the rear. Connect these hoses to the quick disconnect fittings on the track frame. Start the engine and set the speed to approximately 1000 RPMs. Move the hydraulic selector switch located on the left panel inside the cab to the translifter position. Turn the power switch on the control box to the on position. The 4 outside switches on the control box control the 4 individual translifter jacks. We are now ready to lower the translifter jacks and raise the machine enough for the track frames to clear the ground. Make sure that the 4 floats stay firmly on the ground during the lifting procedure. Extend the rear cylinders 2 at a time up about 3 inches and then level up the machine by extending the front cylinders up the same distance. Make adjustments as needed to keep the machine level from side to side. A level is mounted on the car body of the machine as an aid to keep the machine level. Continue this process until both track frames are completely clear of the ground. We are now able to remove the track frame assemblies from the base machine. The total weight of each track frame is 36,155 pounds. Use a 4-leg sling shackled to the 4 lifting eyes on the track frames. Install the softeners to protect the slings and the track pads. Now slowly lift the track frame until the small gap between the track frame and the main frame on the base machine closes. Now remove the smaller top mounting pins by hand. Then, move the selector switch for the main track frame mounting pins to the retract position. These are the 2 inside switches on the control box. Once these pins are fully retracted, the track frame will be free from the base machine. Now remove the main pin hydraulic hoses from the track frame. It may be necessary to relieve the pressure from the hydraulic lines. Do this by quickly pushing the control switch in the extend position. These same hoses are also used for the opposite track frame. Disconnect the power cord so it will not be damaged when the operator swings the upper structure. Please remember that a 360-degree swing is not allowed with the opposite track installed. Do not swing the center point of the track frame past either of the translifters on the side on which the track frame is being removed. Please refer to the operator's manual for detailed instructions. The working radius with the track frame is about 16 feet. Place the track frame on the ground or on the bed of the transport truck. Now swing the upper structure around and remove the other track in the same manner. A 360-degree swing is allowed with the opposite track removed within the 16-foot radius. After the second track frame is removed, lower the machine to the ground and level as needed with translifters. The self-assembly block may remain on the base if needed at the crane's next destination. To remove the self-assembly block from the boom base, disconnect the limit switch. Roll the anti-2 block cable onto the reel and connect the bypass plug on the cable from the machine to the reel. Remove the wedge socket and wind the cable on the drum. Secure the cable to the drums so it does not become loose during transport. The base machine is now ready to load on the transport truck. The translifters will raise the machine up 42 inches so the trailer is able to back under for transport. Lower the machine onto the trailer with the translifters. After the load is removed from the floats, remove the locking pins and slide the float away from the cylinder. Then fully raise the cylinders. Turn off the engine and disconnect the control box cables and store the control box in the compartment behind the seat. Swing all 4 of the translifter arms into the transport position and secure in place with the locking pins. Now lower the boom base section to secure on the transport truck. The final step will be to lower the gantry assembly down to the transport position. Place the selector switch in the cab to the gantry tagline position. Then, operate the gantry cylinder control switch as needed to remove the tension from the tension member locking pins. Remove both pins and store them in the brackets. Now, lower the gantry cylinders. At the same time, lower the boom hoist cable as needed to lower the gantry. Be careful not to allow too much slack in the cable or let it become loose on the drum. When the gantry is completely lowered, secure the transport cables from the gantry to the base machine. Engage the swing house lock and all mechanical drum locks. Remove handrails and place the catwalk in the transport position. The machine is now ready for transport. In this configuration, the total weight of the machine is 86,420 pounds.